Hello, all, and welcome to an incredibly special episode of the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris. I'll explain why it's incredibly special here in a second, but each week I'm joined by Husky Harry Huggable Homos and their friends to talk about something near and dear to our movie-loving hearts, that, of course, being the world of film. And specifically, we love to review movies either current or classic. This week, we'll be reviewing a current movie influenced by some classic movies. That, of course, being Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Big show for us this week, not just because it's a Star Wars movie, although that is definitely of note, but also because it is the 5-year anniversary of the Movie Bears podcast. Holy crap. I can't believe it's been 5 years. 5 years today, guys. Our very first episode went live on iTunes, Stitcher, and our website. This was before we were on YouTube, so there was no video component. I went back and listened today, and I was a little embarrassed. I got to say, we've come a long way in 5 years.
We weren't that bad, were we?
Oh my God, babe. We had like bad NPR voices. We were just, welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. It was awful. Bad. Hey, you've already heard from these guys already a little bit, but let me formally introduce them. With us this week, as usual, our Jim Pugliafico. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, and welcome to the podcast, everyone, and may the force be with you.
Nice touch, babe. And Will Lindis is here too. Welcome, Will.
Hey there, listeners. A special shout out and thank you to everyone that's listened to us over these last 5 years. So happy to be with you through this time, and so happy to be with you tonight to talk about Star Wars.
Indeed. Definitely exciting to come together to discuss this film. But we're also joined by some very special guests who are here to help us celebrate and weigh in with their thoughts. You know them, you'll love them. They are super uber Star Wars nerds. So who else better to have on the show with us? Mike Lovins from Lovins Stereo is with us. Hey, Mike, how you been?
Good. Thanks for having me back.
Glad to have you here, Magic Mike, with Darth Vader in the background over your shoulder. I love it. That is awesome. We've also got Felipe Garcia here from Real Comics Podcast. Felipe,
the answer is Shalacious Crumb.
A callback to 2 years ago.
Yep. Oh, 2 years ago, I had to do that. Hey, guys, thanks for having me back on the air at the Movie Bears podcast.
Glad to have you back with us, Felipe.
When we think of Star Wars, we've got the two guys that we think of, two friends that we think of when we think of Star Wars on the show tonight. So it's going to be a blast talking about this with you guys.
Oh, yes. A
blaster.
It's going to be a Death Star blast. We're also really jazzed to welcome those of you who are listening live right now. Looks like we've got a few folks who've already joined in. Be sure to drop your thoughts or even just a hello in the live chat, and maybe we'll read your comments on air. Sometimes they go at a mile a minute. We're not always able to keep up, but we do love hearing from you guys. So drop it in the chat. Glad to have you with us. And those of you who are listening through the magic of digital tape delay via iTunes or Stitcher or our website, we're glad to have you here with us, too. Even if it's 20 years in the future and episode 17 has come out at this point and you're listening to our back episodes, we still love you. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. In any event. Guys, big show tonight. I figure we might get things started by looking back a little bit. It's been 5 years of the Movie Bears podcast. Jim, Will, you guys have kind of been here for the long haul. Mike, Felipe, you guys have been in and out with us last couple of years. What do you guys think? 5 years, is that crazy to anyone else but me?
It's definitely crazy. It's like, I can't believe it's been 5 years. I was thinking it was like 3 or 4. So I'm thinking like, like last week when we were talking about it, what are we going to do? I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'll get like one of those tuxedo t-shirts, you know what I mean? And like pretend that I'm dressing up to like a formal, 5-year anniversary. And I'm like, nah, I'll probably and then as the week went on, like I didn't get one. And I'm like, I'll have to save that for 10 years then, I guess. And then I'm thinking, wow, we're halfway to 10 years. That's crazy.
That's halfway between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens. I mean, wow, man.
That's a good point. Does that mean that Disney is going to buy us out and take over at some point, Mike?
Oh man, that's sweet Disney money.
Would
right?
that be
That's
so
right.
bad?
No.
I don't know. I love doing this so much every week. I don't know that I would want to be bought out. It might be a tempting.
You'd have to wear different ears than the ones you've got on now.
I probably would have to wear something. It occurs to me that like 85% of the people who enjoy the show do so through the audio version. So sometimes we make comments about like what we're wearing or what we look like and people don't know. Will is wearing a magnificent Chewbacca. Is it officially Chewie? His eyes are blue.
This is Chewie. Yeah.
Nice little Chewy hat there, nice and fuzzy. Keep your head warm. I saw that Boomers 43 in the chat says, looking forward to watching the show tonight. I'm especially liking Will's new toupee. So there you go, Will. Awesome toupee going
Anything
on.
to cover this atrocious bald spot. Yeah.
And I am rocking out a Santa hat with Yoda ears. Felipe's got his really cool, super awesome Stormtrooper. Are those 3D glasses, Felipe, from a couple years ago?
This is from a couple of years ago. I still have the BB-8s and
The Force Awakens, probably.
Chrome
Right?
Trooper. Yep, from The Force Awakens, and got the paraphernalia in the back, of course, that I like keeping around me. So,
Love
God,
it.
5 years, you guys. If it wasn't for you, I myself wouldn't be a podcaster. It was
Aw.
me, you guys, and following the show. And then when I finally got a chance to be on, I caught the bug. What can I say?
Aw.
So you're blaming us for that, I see.
Well, Felipe, we love your show. Jim was just listening on his car ride home. I have been wrapping gifts all afternoon, so I was taking some stuff out to the garage, and I hear Felipe's voice issuing from his car as he's pulling in, and I'm like, is he on the phone? And then I realized, no, it was the podcast. So I was like, yeah. In any event, 5 years, super crazy. Glad to have you with us here, Mike and Felipe, to help us celebrate. Once again, you were here a couple years ago for The Force Awakens. So how fitting that we're here for The Last Jedi. We had a whole bunch of people. We made a Facebook post about our upcoming anniversary. We had a bunch of people wanting to kind of weigh in a little bit, give us some comments and some thoughts on 5 years of the Movie Bears podcast. So we've got some of those comments. Figured we kind of read through some of them. I don't know if we have time for all of them, but so much love to everybody who wrote into the show. If we don't read your comment on air, apologies in advance that you weren't on air, but still Force touched our hearts. So we appreciate it. First comment is from Bill Zanowitz, who was here with us just a few weeks ago for our Justice League review. Bill says, I love being a listener. I love being an occasional guest, but more than anything, I love the enthusiasm that Brad, Jim, and Will have for film. Well, Bill, we love your enthusiasm too. It's always a treat to have you here on the show with us. Thanks for writing in.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, the reason we do this for 5 years is because we love movies, right? I mean, there's no other reason to do this. We're definitely not getting paid. This is not a monetized podcast. We do it for, the love of movies and the thrill that it gives us, and doing it with friends, which is a bonus, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, how about you? Have you got a comment you'd like to share?
I would, but I'm going to pass it on to Will until I get caught up with what the hell I'm doing.
Oh, actually, you know what, Jim? I'll put it in the chat for you there. Go for it.
Oh, all
this
right.
is from Paul Alderete.
And okay. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to.
It's in the group chat for the podcast, not the live chat, where I put the agenda.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm lost.
All right, we've kind of gotten order, so I don't want to go out of order. I'll just read it real quick. Paul Alderete says, movies, dear friends, insightful commentary, friendly faces with a generous sprinkling of Bill Zanowitz, who comes up again for good measure. Congratulations on your milestone. Love you guys. Paul, we love you too. Thanks so much for sending that in. Definitely.
Another great Texas friend.
Oh, yeah. Texas is full of hot bears and good friends of the show, so
Yeah,
can't go wrong.
no complaints here as resident Texan. We've also got a comment here from William Riley, who says, I love the show because I love bears and I love movies. Plus 3 sexy hosts. What's not to enjoy? Sir, yes, sir. I absolutely agree with that. I love the fact that we're able to blend here just like 2 things that I enjoy quite a bit. Movies and husky, hairy, huggable homos. Like that combination has been like a really good peanut butter and jelly. You put your chocolate in my peanut butter type blend that I absolutely enjoy.
My.
So, oh yeah.
Oh, goodness. Well, definitely glad to hear from William as well. Mike, have you got a comment you want to share?
I do, and this comes from Adrian Charlie. And Adrian says, happy 5 years, you guys. I love your enthusiasm for movies and enjoy listening to your thoughts on movies. There's a ton of geography between us, but every week I feel closer to you through your podcast and messages via social media. Wishing you guys all the best on your milestone episode.
Oh, thanks, Adrian. I mean, Adrian's been a longtime friend of the podcast. Another friend who started up his podcast. I think since we've been going, right, Will? If I'm correct, I think they're running like 3 or 4 years at this point.
I think we met them. They had already gotten started, but we met at South by Southwest, and got talking podcasting, and we were fairly early on in the grand scheme of things, maybe year 2. And I think they were just getting off the ground. I don't know if I have that exactly right, but it was great for us to meet someone else there that was at this similar spot in their podcasting career, because everyone else that we've talked to up until then were people who've either been doing this for years and were sponsored or weren't doing this at all. So it's been great to go along this ride with the Green Screen of Death.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Love running into that guy. And Bill as well. It was nice hanging out with them at Fantastic Fest this last September. And Adrian, thanks so much for writing in. Can't wait to see you guys again. Felipe, what have you got?
I have a comment from Stephen Daniel. It says, nice to hear the good and the bad about movies from great guys. I don't get to go to the movies often, but I do like to hear about them. Can't wait to enjoy you guys for many years to come. Also, the eye candy is a major plus. Love to my dude.
I'm glad that you're reading that.
I love that. Yeah. I love that Felipe read that one.
Hey. Felipe, I got to say, we're Huggable Harry, Homos Who Love Film, but as part of our and friends portion of the show, you're a good sport for reading those kinds of comments.
No, we are true friends all here. So.
This is true. And I love that he called us my dudes, although it takes me back to ordering chicken from Church's, babe, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah, that guy. That's right.
Can we have a 3-piece tender meal? Sure, my dude. What else can I get you, my dude?
Hey, my man.
Oh, goodness. Well, the next comment that we've got comes to us from J.P. Wendell, who says, this may be shallow, but I enjoy 3 handsome mugs minimum per show. This show, you get 5, JP, so hopefully that's a bonus. He says, and I guess the insightful, well-thought-out discourse and conversational style are pretty good too, I guess. JP, so glad to have you following with us along on the show. Always enjoy seeing you pop into the chat. Thanks so much for being a listener. We appreciate it. All right, and Jim, go for it.
All right, I'm back. Now that I'm on the same sheet of music that you guys are on, we have a comment from Martin Sudlow. He says, only found this a short while back. Thoroughly enjoy the reviews and love you guys who host it. Happy 5th birthday, guys. Looking forward to more. Well, Martin, thanks for being one of our relatively new friends of the podcast and listeners. There's always people, new people coming and people that go, they take a break for a while and come back. But it feels to me like this little community of movie friends that we have. And that's what's special about it. So thanks, Martin.
Indeed. Whether you're a new listener or a vet, we love having you with us. So that's awesome.
Speaking of a vet, we've got a comment here from longtime listener and friend of the show, Mick Jones, who says he gives us a countdown of 5 things.
His top 5.
Yeah, his top 5. His 5 things that he likes best about the show, fitting for our 5th anniversary. So number 5, lively discussion. Number 4, Brad's puns. Number 3, the great care you guys take in not spoiling the movie. Well, until the spoiler section when you're supposed to. Number 2, year-end movie countdowns. Great way to hear about lesser-known movies I likely missed. And the number 1 reason, the hunky hosts. Happy 5th, you guys. Hey, from one of our, air quotes, hunky hosts to one of our hunky listeners, thank you so much, Mick.
Yeah, we know what he's listening for or watching for.
Yeah. Those guys sound hot.
Hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong. I mean, if you're going to watch the video version of a podcast, it helps if you're, into the host, I guess, if they're alluring to watch on screen. Mm-hmm. One thing I like that he said was the comment about the care we take about spoilers. And that's something Adrian Charlie has mentioned in the past, too, from Green Screen of Death is, sometimes you listen to podcasts and they're like, all right, spoilers are officially fair game. Here we go. Oh, my God, the Titanic sank. What do you think about that? Listeners don't have
no pause.
or not even a warning. I mean, they'll just jump into the movie discussion. And spoilers are scattered in there, and it's a minefield. You just
definitely.
Yeah.
So Felipe, because you guys have an amazing podcast as well, tell our listeners how do you handle spoiler alerts? What do you do?
It's funny. We're still learning our way through that, just like you guys already have. So in our young podcast, I know that we've had several moments where, we look at each other and we've only been 2 minutes into the show, but we're ready to talk spoilers. But we've learned to gradually write out a little bit better, I believe, hit certain notes, take pauses, give people a chance and let them know that they're coming. But again, your show is a great model, and all these people's comments are a good representation of that. You guys are awesome. What can I say? We follow you.
Aw. You do a great job. You guys do a great job. I've noticed a huge jump in confidence, I guess. From you. And I mean, I don't know if this was I'm pretty sure you've probably had, other guests before, but this last show with this guest, so well integrated. It was a lot of fun to listen to.
And those kinds of things can be really hard when you have guests on, especially when you're a newer podcast and you're feeling your way through that for the first time. I think it took us a couple of years before we kind of found our stride with a lot of that, to the point that where we had special guest Anna Maria Leonte from The Force Awakens on a couple years ago. Awesome. We did an interview with her, and for the first time it felt like we were polished at this. We didn't feel like we were fumbling our way through. You know what I mean?
The interview, and I remember us right afterwards going oh my gosh, that felt so different than the ones before. Not that it was we loved interviewing her. Nothing against our previous guests or a difference from her. It was just that was our moment of just feeling comfortable in our skin and comfortable with our kind of our chemistry versus our guests' chemistry. So that was a fun moment for us.
I'm glad it came off that way, because I got to tell you, we were very, very nervous that whole week of planning, and first guest ever. And, she's a big personality, Kate, over at the But Why Though podcast. And it just seemed to go really well. We wanted to make sure we hit notes that she had and that we had, and we were all on the same page. And luckily, like I said, that's our most listened to show to date, the Coco show. And we even have hits as far away as China. We're not sure yet how we get those, but we actually do.
That's awesome. I I know we're talking, listener comments, so we're kind of getting a field, and that's okay because you know what? It's 5 years. We can do that. One of the things I notice is like when we tag like the topics that the show is about, like on YouTube, sometimes what'll happen is you might like hashtag Star Wars in the post or something. Well, people all over the world are looking at that hashtag, so they're seeing that little blurb about the show. And it's kind of amazing. Like we'll go back in and take a look at the YouTube analytics, and it's like people from Malaysia and Japan and Africa. And it's like, wait a second, people in Africa are listening to our show? Like, it's kind of insane. So Felipe, that's awesome. Congratulations to you guys. That's a big milestone in and of itself.
For sure. Thanks.
All right, moving on. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah. So this comment comes in from Gary, Dr. McCoy, and he says, I love hearing about movies from people who actually love movies, and the hot bears are nice too. Smiley face.
Can you do that wink? Read that line and that wink one more time, Mike.
Okay. And the hot bears are nice too. Smiley face.
Woo! I'm going to be rewatching this video later for that wink.
I totally just took a screenshot of that wink. That's why I had him read it again. That's going in my private file. Anyway, so Gary, man, he's been a long time listener of the show. I think the last probably 4 years or so, Gary's been kicking around. So, Gary, good to hear from you. Thanks for writing in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Hey, I have a comment, guys. One here from Chris Lopez. It says,
Chris J-Lo Lopez.
J-Lo Lopez, is that his moniker?
It is
I just
now.
gave it to him.
It is now, yeah.
It says, he goes on to say, you see bad movies, so I don't have to. Just one of the many reasons, of course. But the truth is, I love hanging out with you guys, and listening in is like a tiny version of that.
We love hanging out with Chris. He's, he was one of our, he was our fourth for a while. He was a very valuable member of the team here. And of course, schedules got in the way. And so we lost the voice of the Movie Bears podcast, but we love hanging out with him when we get the chance. We love having him back on where we can. And just the fact that we're able to have these little like virtual hangout bonding sessions over films is just such a delight.
Oh man, totally. And looking back on some of my favorite memories of the show over the last 5 years, something we did several months back, and that was our Steven Universe special, which Chris Lopez, sexy voice of the Movieverse podcast, joined us for. And man, like that was so much fun to do. And Chris, I mean, he's super sexy and he has this really sexy voice, but he's sharp as a fucking whip too. Like it's always interesting to see like what he picks out in his analysis of things. So Chris, if you're listening, we love you. We miss you. And anytime you want to come on back, my friend, just let us know and we'll be happy to have you back. All right, moving on to a comment from Cisco Salgado. Cisco, who's been around a long time too, says, happy birthday to the greatest, handsomest, hairy, huggable homos. Cub hugs from Cisco. Cisco, I mean, we'll take hugs from you any day, but thank you so much for writing in. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Another friend of the show we've gotten to meet. So I've got one from Steve Bubba, another familiar name. This one is not a countdown, but a count up. Consider it like a list, if you will. So here's his list, starting with number one. Reasons, I guess, that he likes listening to the show. Hot Bears, number one. Number two, when William Lindis furrows his eyebrows when he's about to say something very erudite. Yes, I can hear I can hear the furrowing on the audio-only podcast.
Is that before or after we hear the craft beer being opened?
Yeah, usually after. He gets that thing open right away.
One goes hand in hand with the other.
Number three, Hot Bears again. Number four, to hear things about superhero movies nerd-splained to Jim. Yeah, that happens a lot. You guys know all about that. Number five, Hot Bears. Number six, to see what excuse Brad Harris will give to put on his He-Man wig.
Hey, I have the power. Might as well use it.
Yep. And number 7 is the best one. I know that none of you are wearing pants.
Guilty.
Well, Mike Levins is on the show.
Yeah, I know. He's right though. I'm wearing shorts. So today, I've dressed for this podcast.
He's dressed for the occasion.
Yeah.
Dress for the job you want.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for that list. That was great.
Steve, for the longest time, was a replacement Will. And what I mean by that is every year I would go away for Fantastic Fest, and Steve was the replacement every year for me. And for the longest time, the rumor was circulating by me and Steve specifically that we were the same person, just sort of like warging in and out of each other's bodies. So when we finally got to be on a show together, it was kind of a special moment for me to see my brother in arms face to virtual face.
I'd warg into Steve's body anytime.
Just saying. Got another comment here from Ben Stark, who says, "Congrats on the 5 years. I love your podcast. I think the first episode I listened to was this episode 2 years ago," which is fitting. Welcome back for from episode 7 to episode 8 of Star Wars. Your love and knowledge of movies is great. You guys are awesome and sexy. Well, you, Ben, are awesome and sexy as well. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.
Yeah, wow. Has 2 years really gone by since Ben started like listening and popping into the live chat? That's nuts.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, it's blurred by.
I'm going to give a quick little shout out to Ben myself. Hey, Ben, hope you're listening. Ben's a local here for now.
He's moving to Arizona or something, right?
Yeah.
So
more around your neck of the woods.
We're taking him, Mike. I'd say I'm sorry, but I'm not.
You're not. That's fine. I get it.
Blamed.
All right, Mike, close us out with our last listener comment.
All right. This comes from Ragnar Bernison. Sounds like a name from Game of Thrones or something.
It does.
Ragnar says, "Congratulations, guys, for 5 years. I just found your podcast not so long ago in a galaxy far, far away, but I really enjoy listening to you. Really hope that more people will see how talented and fun you guys are." And I threw in the galaxy far, far away, so I did paraphrase his comment there. But
yeah, I would agree definitely with the fun part. We definitely have fun. The talented part is yet to be
questionable.
Yet to be. Yeah. But we'll take it. We'll take it.
Year anniversary.
We'll take it.
There's an incredibly low bar that I guess we can clear. But we do have fun with this. Like, and that's part of like. I don't think, Brad and Jim, not to speak for you guys here, but I'm going to. I don't think we'd still be doing this if we weren't having fun with it. Like, that's right. We're not getting paid. We're not like, we're not really getting anything out of this aside from the fun that we get talking movies with each other and connecting with the people that have listened to us and been guests over the years. So thank you for being a part of that fun, you guys and all of you listeners, and someone who's listening to this podcast like 6 months from now who's just stumbled upon it. Thank you as well.
Absolutely. Well, welcome and thank you so much to everyone who wrote into the show. We have one more comment in the chat. I'm going to throw it out there from Craig Puckett, who says, "Happy anniversary, lovely gents. I'm still bummed I didn't get to meet Brad during Fantastic Fest here in Austin. But perhaps someday I'll see you all at TIFF instead." TIFF would be amazing. Do you already know Craig, since you guys are from Austin?
Oh, Craig and I are really close. Like he lived like a block away from me, so like we would like we would joke like we were like big boy walking distance from each other's house. So, it was like seriously, like I'd feed his cats. He'd check in on me when something was going on, and he recently moved to Canada, and it's been an absolute blow to the Austin community here, at least from my perspective, because like not only did I lose a good friend from this area, but also like a neighbor. Sucks, Craig, that you abandoned us, but also like I totally get it.
Craig says he did walk to your house once. So
we did. It's so funny. Like I know we maybe walked over there like twice. But even though we are walking distance, it's only a couple blocks. We are also big boys, and we also have cars. So just because it was walkable didn't mean we always did.
What's
That's
the quote?
fair.
You spend so much time trying to figure out if you could that you never thought to ask if you should.
You should.
Life finds a way. Anyway, all right. So, listeners, thank you so much for writing in. It's been a blast celebrating our 5-year anniversary with you guys. That took way longer than we thought it would when we budgeted time. But that's okay, because 5 years, I mean, that's a big milestone, right? We have a yearly anniversary, but 5 years, like Mike was saying earlier, I mean, it's half a decade, right?
If we put out a 4-hour podcast every 5 years, I think people will forgive us, right?
Yeah, you know what? We can indulge ourselves a little bit. It's as Mike and Felipe are hearing this and like looking at their watches, just like, shit. How long is this going to be?
What did I sign up for?
Yeah,
especially Mike, because he's ahead of us. Well,
Yeah,
Mike and Will, it's the same time for you guys, right?
Central. Yeah.
No, I'm Eastern time.
Oh,
yeah. He's that much closer to midnight than me.
Well, we'll try not to keep you guys for 3 hours, but we do have something fun that we're going to do before we get to our review of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Felipe, you called back to it earlier. 2 years ago, we had a showdown between you and Mike for Star Wars trivia. We didn't officially take score necessarily back then, but you know what? Tonight we're going to do it. We got some questions. We're going to go head to head. Are you guys ready to show your massive Star Wars nerd amazingness?
No.
Absolutely not.
Oh, then Mike is our only hope, apparently.
No, only hope.
All right, so
they're all easy. They're all easy.
So just some quick rules. Here's how it's going to work. We're going to take turns asking you guys questions. Duh. If you do not get your question right, the other person will have a chance to answer that question and steal the point. First person to 6 points wins. If we end up in a tie, we do have a tiebreaker question, and we'll talk about how that works when we get there if we need it. But just keep that in the back of your mind. Felipe, you are up first.
All right,
are you ready?
Here we go. Let's do it.
All right. So in The Empire Strikes Back, Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and C-3PO find themselves in need of safe harbor. They head to Cloud City, run by Han's old buddy, Lando Calrissian. Cloud City hangs in the atmosphere above which world?
This is what we talked about in the car the other day.
Yeah, it is.
It's funny because I know all the lines leading up to it, and the name is escaping me.
It's all right. Don't talk to yourself. Take a little time if you need it, but anything but Google.
No Google.
No ad.
No, I'm sorry, that's not correct. All right, Mike, goes to you. Do you know?
Bespin.
Ding, 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 ding.
Bespin.
Correct.
Bespin.
That is the gas planet of Bespin.
Horrible.
Where they mine Tabana gas.
Tabana gas.
Oh, Mike.
I think that was a hard one.
There's no extra credit, no extra points, but that was like there are some style points there. Like
Mike just mic dropped on me. That was not
nice, Mike. Way to swing around that big nerd boner. All right, so
wait. Okay, I'm good now. Sorry.
All right. I have the next question, and I guess this one's for Mike.
Yep.
Again, Mike, if you don't get this, Felipe gets a chance to steal the point, right? So, who is the only actor to appear either physically or voice only in all 10 Star Wars films, including the Clone Wars and Rogue One, to date?
Anthony Daniels.
Is that your answer?
Yes.
That's correct. Anthony Daniels is the only one to appear in all the movies. That's
Now,
awesome.
You got to explain this, Jim, because Anthony Daniels in Rogue One. Did we see C-3PO?
We did.
Yes, we did.
He's in the IMDb. Yes, he is. And I had to.
They never tell me anything.
I actually had to change my question because it's now 10 movies. When I stole this question from some website, there was only like 8 movies at the time. So I had to do a little research myself and figure it out. But
Scarif, they
Yes.
never tell me anything.
oh Jesus, this is what we're up against.
All right.
Oh my God.
We are two zip. Felipe,
You got this one, Felipe. You got this one.
I'm getting a skunked.
All right, here you go, Felipe. In The Empire Strikes Back, what is the name of the rebel base on Hoth?
The name of the rebel base on Hoth.
Yes, in The Empire Strikes Back, what is the name of the rebel base on Hoth?
This is just bad.
This is just bad.
No, that's not the answer.
I was just echoing you.
This is just bad base.
Yeah, it's a bad base. I am drawing blanks here.
That's
No,
all right.
No worries.
Yeah.
If it helps at all, I would have been over 3 so far. So, Mike, with the chance for Steel,
ahead,
what's the name of the rebel base on Hoth?
Okay, first of all, Brad, that was really cute. Echo base.
That is correct. The correct answer is Echo Base.
Echo base. Oh.
Is it bad that I remember after he answers them?
Oh, that's the way it always goes.
You're like,
It's a
oh, that's
word,
right.
Yeah, it's just like I knew that. Yeah.
That's all right, Felipe. No worries. Plenty
All
of
right,
questions
before
left.
showing. All right.
You got room to redeem yourself, just like Darth Vader. All right. So next question, Mike, it is for you. What orchestral theme famously plays as Luke looks out upon the twin sons of Tatooine in A New Hope?
Binary Sunset.
I'm totally fangirling out over your knowledge, Mike. Nice job. Nice job. That is my favorite piece of
Wait a
music
minute.
from Star Wars.
We ask a musician a music
I
score
was just going to
question.
say that.
That's like fixed.
No, I'm impressed because when I saw this list of questions, my first thing I thought, and granted, I'm not music score guy, but at the same time, I saw this one and was like, okay, well, this is the one where both people are going to biff, and we're just going to go to the next round on. So, I'm impressed. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
I
with
wouldn't have
that one,
got that. I wouldn't have got that.
Yeah. Okay, so Felipe, you're not going to get shut out because I know you're going to get this next question, and then I'm going to ask.
Thanks for
In
putting
which original theatrical Star Wars movie, excluding special editions, again, do we first actually see Jabba the Hutt?
excluding.
Excluding special editions. In which original theatrical movie,
Well, then that would be
excluding the special editions, meaning when they were first released, do we actually see Jabba the Hutt?
Return of the Jedi.
Ding, ding, ding! He's got it. He's got it right. Woo!
Hey,
I told you.
I won't be shut out. Thank God.
Felipe on the board. Way to dig deep. That was my Jeff Probst best narrative.
It works pretty good. You got to dig deep.
Sound worth playing for? Just like that, immunity is back up for grabs.
Oh boy.
Mhm.
All right. Next question we've got is for Mike. So here we go. Even though Peter Serafinovich did the voice work, Darth Maul was portrayed by what martial arts stuntman, also known for his role as Toad in the X-Men movie?
Ray Park.
That's right.
Parks. Oh, Park.
Yeah,
Okay.
No,
I was like, where are you?
I was pausing for emphasis, not to be like pedantic. Yeah. That's correct. Ray Park.
Nice job, Mike. All right, we are 5-1.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys
You're
know
fine.
who portrayed Darth Maul in the Clone Wars and Rebels?
Animated movies?
The animated TV
Animated?
show.
The voice,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I don't.
Who was it?
Joseph
Whit-
Gordon-Levitt. No.
Sam Witwer, the guy who was Star Killer in the Force
Sam
Unleashed games.
Sam
Oh,
Witwicky.
Oh, Sam Witwicky. Oh wait, wrong
Okay, sorry.
franchise. Nice, Mike. All right, Felipe, this one is for you. Now I kind of feel bad, but it's a lot of Empire questions. Somehow we ended up with a lot of Empire questions. So this is Empire Strikes Back. In The Empire Strikes Back, according to C-3PO, what are the odds of successfully surviving an asteroid field?
It's in a line of dialogue.
I know. It's so... Can't remember that damn number. $824,000 to 1. I don't remember the specific number.
That's
Damn,
all right.
correct.
It's incorrect, but it's still all right. No worries. Mike, you've got a chance to steal this one and win the game.
Win the game.
Something thousand to 1.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
That
let's
one-
do it, Mike.
Something.
That-
You have 5 seconds. All right.
Something dark side.
The correct answer was 3,720 to 1.
Oh, had the 20
Close.
part, right?
Yeah.
Close.
All right.
All right. The next one I came up with should be pretty easy. This one's for Mike, right? For his 6th point.
It is for Mike for his 6th point and potential win.
Okay, so we've heard the arguments of who shot first in the first Star Wars movie, right? Between Han and the guy in the bar, whatever. But since we prefer love over war, the more important question is, between the characters of Leia, Luke, and Han, who kissed who first and in which film?
Leia kissed Luke first in Empire.
That's correct. That's correct.
And with that, Mike wins the game. Nice job, everybody. You know what? Mike did win, but we're all winners because we have successfully upped our Star Wars knowledge. So, guys, nice job. Do you want to hear our tiebreaker question?
I want to
see.
Let's quickly run through the last 3 or 4.
Oh, sure. Okay. So, last 3 or 4 questions. Will, yours would have been next. So, go for it.
Let's see. Yeah. So, and I guess instead of just asking one person or the other, I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Throw it out.
Yeah. So, another Empire Strikes Back question, mainly.
That would have been me.
Awesome. So, yeah, Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader enlists a group of bounty hunters to track down the Millennium Falcon. So, we all know that Boba Fett was one of those bounty hunters. Name one other.
Bosk.
Perfect. Yeah, the answer's there. Mike, do you have another one to add in?
IG-88.
IG-88. Yep.
So there's
Dengar.
5, and those. Oh gosh, yeah, good
Yeah,
on Dengar. I wouldn't have done that. I knew Boss. I knew IG-88. I could have done that because of the N64 game, and you fight IG-88, and he's a real bastard. But Dengar, Forlom, and Zuckuss,
Yep.
which
Those two I wouldn't have got.
I think the last 2 are made up. Sometimes I feel like half of Star Wars trivia is just like.
Oh, gosh. All right. Jim.
Forlom was the other droid that looked like a fly, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
The last one I had was during the dramatic reveal of the father-son relationship between Vader and Luke in The Empire Strikes Back. By the way, Brad, did we announce up front, like we said we were going to do, that we would probably have spoilers for the other movies in here? No,
because I assume everyone's seen them.
Okay,
at this
okay.
point.
yeah. I mean, if you're joining for the review of episode 8 of a franchise, and the other films are, I mean, hell, all of our questions are Empire Strikes Back. So, it's randomly. So I mean, we're talking that many years ago. Like, I think these are fine. I think we're fine.
All right. During the dramatic reveal of the father-son relationship between Vader and Luke in The Empire Strikes Back, what exactly is Vader's actual line?
It's often misquoted, so keep that in mind.
Do you want to take it, Philippe?
Go ahead. You can start it. Like I said.
Do you know it?
I believe I do.
What is it?
Are we starting from where he says Obi-Wan never told you
Just the
what happened to your father?
Just the line that he says when he comes out and tells him that he's his father. What does he say?
Doesn't he say, "I am your father"?
Well, it's actually two sentences, I guess.
I
am your father. Yeah.
It's no, I am your father. It's
Yeah.
often misquoted as Luke, I am your father, but he never says it that way.
Right.
He says, no, I am your father.
Right.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him. Wait, that wasn't whiny enough. He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
It's almost like because of this this young Jedi's parentage, he goes really emo in that exact moment. It's not like that's a thing that happens anywhere else in the franchise.
I can't imagine his father was ever like that.
All right, so this was going to be our tiebreaker question. And I want you guys to put your answer in the Hangout chat. All right?
Jeez.
Okay.
It's just for fun. But in the opening scene of A New Hope, how many engines does the ship carrying Princess Leia have? Put your answer in the chat. 5 seconds. All right. Mike said 8 engines. Felipe said 6 engines.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not, it's 11 engines. So, Mike, you got closest without going over. You would have won that tiebreaker.
There's some in between, I think.
I don't know. This is Brad's. This is Brad's question. He did the research on this one.
If you pull up a screenshot of the Tantive 5 and you count the engines.
That's a fair question. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
So, Mike, this hat can't really be tipped, but I'll tip my head to you, Mike. Congratulations officially. But Felipe, nice job as well. Guys, we've got a movie to talk about, and we're like already 50 minutes into the show. How do we feel making that happen? Are we good? Are we down?
Oh, yeah. No. We're all just going to be like, let's not talk about Star Wars.
Punch it, Chewie.
We're calling it there.
Punch it, Chewie.
All right, so we're going to talk about Star Wars The Last Jedi here in just a few moments. If you are new to the show, if you're not familiar with our format, and for some reason you haven't seen The Last Jedi yet, don't fear, don't fret. Fear leads to the dark side. We don't want that. We're going to talk about the film very briefly, spoiler free, just give you some initial impressions. Should you check it out or not? You've probably already made your mind up, but this movie is dividing fans pretty hardcore. So I know of at least 3 people personally who decided not to see it because of the audience's Rotten Tomatoes score. And that's a subject for another show, I guess. But
yeah,
we'll give you some impressions, and then we'll give you a fair warning before we ignite the lightsaber of spoilers and start cleaving through your ignorance of the plot. So don't worry. We'll let you know when that's going to happen. But guys, here we go. Our discussion of Star Wars, The Last Jedi. All right. Mike, thanks for that musical lead-in. Giving us some Imperial March goodness. I love it. So, Jim, we're going to go to you on this one because out of all of us, I think you are the one that got to see the very first Star Wars movie in theaters. So it seems only fitting. You were there at the beginning. Now you're here at episode 8. What's the basic premise of this? And do you feel like this was a good movie? Is it worth checking out? What's your thought? And of course, remember, no spoilers.
Oh, absolutely. So it's episode 8 as the franchise goes, although it's not in the title. The title is Star Wars The Last Jedi. This is the second in what's being called, the sequel trilogy Of course, with 4 through 6 being the original trilogy and 1 through 3 being the much aligned prequel trilogy. This one is number 8. And of course, we had those other movies. We talked about them, kind of standalone movies, the Clone Wars animated movie, and also Rogue One, which we got last year around this time. We talked about that on the show. This one is directed by director Rian Johnson, who came onto the scene back in 2005 with his his neo-noir movie Brick, indie movie, which got him a lot of attention. He then went on to do like the mild sci-fi hit Looper, which we also talked about, I think, on this show. Then he moved into Breaking Bad. He directed probably one of the best episodes, if not the best episode of Breaking Bad, called Ozymandias, which won him lots of awards for directing that episode and got him even more attention. So every step this guy has taken has done a lot to increase his notoriety and his reputation as a great director. Of course, then he was scooped up to do this movie, following up on the J.J. Abrams doing The Force Awakens, and also this guy's been not saddled, but given the opportunity to do the next Star Wars trilogy. To lay out all of the next Star Wars trilogy. So that's a big, huge deal. Anyway, back to The Last Jedi. This one continues the story from The Force Awakens, the epic conflict between what we know now as the First Order and the Resistance or Rebel fighters. It picks up pretty much where The Force Awakens left off, with Rey developing her newly discovered abilities with the guidance of let's say hermit Luke Skywalker, which we saw at the end of The Force Awakens, and who ends up being unsettled by the strength of her powers. So that's kind of all I can really get into with this movie without hitting spoilers. The cast of this movie, of course, we have all the known actors coming back from the franchise. Mark Hamill as Luke, Carrie Fisher. We have Adam Driver, who was new in The Force Awakens, coming back as Kylo Ren. Daisy Ridley as Rey again. John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Andy Serkis. I mean, a huge list of great talent behind this movie. This one, bottom line is, I really, really like this movie. Saw it twice. The first time was... It was still a good movie. It was okay. I liked it, but I had some strong issues with it, and we'll talk about those as we go along. Mostly centered around some of the tonal choices that the movie made in the first act. Kind of threw me out of the movie at a couple of spots, and I got back into it, but I was still a little bit in the back of my mind, I'm thinking why did they do that? So my whole first viewing was a little tilted. The second viewing, I was able to kind of put those things aside and take the movie for what it was. And I do believe this is a really, really good Star Wars movie. This one feels like more of of course, it's the second in a trilogy where The Force Awakens was introducing new characters, setting up this new storyline. This one is much more concerned with advancing the story. And I will say it's more of a plot-focused movie than a character-driven movie, where I think The Force Awakens was kind of opposite. Both of them have plot, character, all that stuff, but I think one focuses more on character and one focuses more on plot, because it has to. The way it's positioned in a trilogy, it's got to start moving this world forward. And I think it does a good job of that. There's some great cinematic moments in this movie, especially in the third act, where I think this movie really hits its stride in the third act and I think, for the most part, nails the landing, sticks the landing. Just some great stuff that we're going to talk about in spoilers. But in short, I'm going to say I really, really like this movie. I would recommend it to anybody. Of course, Star Wars fans have to see it. I don't understand guys who are reading Twitter or Facebook or fan reviews and not going to see a movie in a franchise that they would normally like or love. I don't know. I'm in the camp of let's go give this thing give this thing your own opinion, not somebody else's, and go forward. Yep, I loved it. I'm going to get off the stage and let you guys talk.
Get off the stage! All right, so a big recommend from Jim. Felipe, I'm curious as just your thoughts, because I saw several comments from you on Facebook and Twitter over the weekend, and it was
very vague.
You were, holding yourself back from committing one way or the other. So for me, this is like prime time. Here we go. I want to know what you thought.
Okay. I did. I tried to stay off of my Twitter feed because, as you guys have brought up, and we don't want to make that the focus here, that there is some fandom out there that's really bringing this movie down in a certain way. I enjoyed the movie very much. In my Twitter comment, I did say, however, I'm left with questions. And these are good questions because I'm the Star Wars fan. These are Star Wars questions that I have. It isn't about the content. I enjoyed the plot and the chances they took. We got a lot of complaints that The Force Awakens was a cookie-cutter Death Star movie, and now we have The Last Jedi, which is nothing like that at all. It has its own story. We've introduced a few new characters, and I was very impressed with the way that it was done and the way that it was handled in this film. I do have, like I said, I do have big questions. I'm going to save those for our spoiler talk, of course, because I'm curious your thoughts as well. But I did love this movie, and I'm hoping to see it again one more time before the Real Comics tackles our own version of the podcast. This is a big recommend for me as an original watcher myself. I think sometimes people forget actually how old I am. So I did get to see the original way back then, and there's some moments in this film that, a little twinkle in my eye. You definitely get a little emotional, and it brings all those good feelings out. And I do recommend it to those three people who you spoke with because they saw the audience score. That's a whole other story. Make your own mind up. See it. Make your own opinion. Trust me when I say I don't think you'll be tremendously disappointed.
It's interesting that you say that because we're on a movie podcast, right? Like giving our opinions as to whether you should go see it. And it's like, I get that. And I have podcasts I like to listen to, and I respect their opinions. And if they didn't like a movie, that might be an indicator. But then sometimes I go see that movie and I'm like, were they like smoking spice from Dune or something? Did we even see the same movie? So like, I agree with what you're saying, Felipe. I mean, yeah. Even if you're seeing opinions from friends or critics that you trust, always good to go in and make up your own mind, Yes, so
for sure.
Can't wait to listen to your guys' review on Real Comics Podcast.
Oh, that's going to be an interesting one. I'm telling you that right now. My good friend Andrew and I are in two camps on this one. I believe. I mean, we're going to be very similar, but his questions are going to be different than mine. We're already plotting that out, and we'll talk about that later.
All right. Awesome. Hey, real quick, Dave Massey. Oh my God, Dave. Love that guy so much. Let me make a heart symbol to show how much we love him. Says, I swear at one point I heard John Williams' Superman theme. We're going to talk about some of the score stuff in this movie. I love that piece of music. I don't know that I heard it. So, Dave, maybe what you could do is when we get to spoilers, in case there's anyone in chat who hasn't seen the movie yet, maybe, Dave, at that point, when we take the lid off spoilers, you could put the moment you think you remember hearing it. That would be interesting to know. If you're still sticking around with us at that point, we hope you will. But let's go on down to Will. Will, what about you? What were your thoughts here?
So first and foremost, regardless of what I'm about to say on this one, I do think that if you are a fan of Star Wars, you should go see this movie. And I say that that's true of a lot of franchises. I even said that before Justice League, a movie that I did not recommend people go see. I still recommended fans of the franchise or people who've waited so many years to see those characters together on the big screen together, see this movie. Same thing here. This is the continuation of not just a franchise, but a dynasty at this point. Like, this is a very important cultural moment for us. So if you're at all interested in being a part of those things, see it for yourself, make up your own mind. As for me, I absolutely loved this movie. And I get why some people would have issues or be a little bit lower in some areas than others. And I'm totally cool with that. For me personally, what I loved about this one is that it was an incredibly gutsy film. I think that what this movie did was it took the formula and it shook it up a little bit to help catapult things in terms of like where we're going next with the franchise, while being still reverent to some of the things that we loved about the first 7+ movies, you know, and all of the years of history. This movie is both respectful of the past, but also seeks to dismantle it in some ways. And I think that that's a very important thing for me as a Star Wars fan and as a film fan. I love the story beats here. I love the visuals. I love the characters. When we get to spoilers, we'll talk about the fact that probably my new favorite character was introduced in this film. And so I can't wait to talk about her and why I love her so much. This is an absolute must watch for me. And it's an absolute must watch for me again. I've only seen it the one time. And I'm looking forward to watching this one on repeat. There's just so many moments that I want to experience again and again and again. So yeah, 2 thumbs way super high up.
All right.
Okay, well,
Nice.
Big string of hearty recommends here. Mike, how about you, my friend? What'd you think?
Well,
we know where you
I
are.
loved
Come
it. No, I absolutely loved it. Now, I will say that, like a lot of people, when I came out of the first viewing that I saw of it, it was, you know, it's just, you are hit with so much that it's just like, oh my God, what did I just see? I was so glad to see it again so quickly, because then like I knew what was coming up and stuff like that, and I was able to just sit back and enjoy it. And man, for anybody that's out there that is on the fence about seeing it, or if you saw it and you aren't quite sure what you think about it, it's a huge recommend for me. Once, it's an even bigger recommendation from me to see it again.
And you don't work for Disney, right?
I do not.
Are you one of those paid Disney critics I've been hearing about?
In fact,
You
I
gotta
would
see
say
it twice. You gotta see it
see
twice.
it 10 times if you really want to get. No, so I am on 3 times. So yeah. The things I want to talk about, man, they're all so spoilery. So I gotta bite my tongue.
Do you have a 4th in you? Like, do you already have tickets for your 4th?
Well, so I saw Force Awakens 7 times in the theater, so I figure I have to see this one 8.
I think that
this is why I
perfect
lose.
sense, yeah.
This is why I lose the trivia. It's like 7, 12 times. This is okay. No.
So Mike, what I'm hearing is you saw episode 7 times. You're going to see episode 8 times. You're going to see episode 9 times.
And you saw Rogue One once?
No.
Oh
And
goodness!
maybe I'll see Solo once.
Fair.
Nice. That was good. That was good, Mike. So for me, yes, there's a lot to unpack in spoilers, so I'll be very brief. I gotta say, the first time I saw this movie, I wasn't super happy with it. I liked it, I enjoyed it, but I had some real issues, and I think part of that is, and I think it's a lot of what's happening with fans right now. If you look at the critic score versus the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which, by the way, not the be-all, end-all of anything at all, but there's a big disparity, right? It's come to light that there may be some people, I saw someone on Reddit who claims that somehow he's used a computer to downvote The Last Jedi like crazy, and he's responsible somehow for the low score.
No, don't laugh, Jim. Brad, you touched a nerve right there. There's at least 3 people claiming this, and
right.
Even if it's possible, you think about what damage they're doing. You've got 3 friends who've kind of made up their mind on that score. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly where I was going with this. Is You know, I mean, I'll sometimes look at a Rotten Tomatoes score. Like for the podcast, I really don't use it as an aggregate of whether I want to go see a movie or not.
Right.
For instance, maybe this causes me to lose points, but I really enjoyed the Gem and the Holograms movie, and it had like a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. Granted, everybody else really hated Gem, and I was special. But
Jim, please, please, please insert like that 80s record scratch sound that would play in trailers. Put that right after Brett says that line.
Yeah, in any event, coming out of this movie the first time, and I won't spoil anything, obviously, but, I think I went in with so many expectations. I had so many theories, so many things that I wanted answers to. And one of the great things about Rian Johnson is he does an amazing job of subverting all the expectations and maybe giving you answers, but not quite the answers that you want. Answers to things maybe you didn't realize you needed or wanted answers to. And so it's weird coming out of that movie. And I can't unpack too much yet. We will. But I just felt really disappointed in a lot of ways. Also, too, you guys know me. Like, humor in movies is not always my bag, especially this Marvel-style humor of, like, quips. And I just felt like this movie had so much more of that than The Force Awakens did. And it was a big turnoff for me the first time around. It was super distracting. It kept pulling me out. So coming out of the movie, I was just cogitating, trying to parse, like, how do I really feel about this? And so I realized I really needed to see it a second time in order to really get a full, opportunity to judge this movie for myself. And I'm glad we went to see it again, because this time around, like, I didn't have those expectations going in. I knew the stupid humor stuff. For me, everyone's funny bone is different. I knew those things were coming, so I didn't let them bother me as much. I knew that some answers you got, some you didn't. So I didn't let that bother me as much. And what was good about that is it kind of opened it up for me. I think I was able to more fully appreciate the movie for what it is rather than what I wanted it to be going in. And I will admit, I had some hopes and dreams that were dashed, but I also had some hopes and dreams that were awesome.
You didn't even know you had. Yeah.
Didn't even know I had, right? One thing I will say, though, is that even though I do think this is a fucking awesome movie, I do really love it now, and I think you should go see it. That doesn't mean it's not without issue. The comedy for me is still a problem. And two, this movie has some giant fucking plot holes that I think are, they're distracting, and they take me out of the movie because I keep thinking, well, wait, why didn't they do this? This would make more sense. We'll talk about some of that, but I don't know. It's a really great film, but it's not a perfect film, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. Good job, Brad.
There you go. All right. Well, guys, how do we feel about just moving into spoilers and ripping the Band-Aid off and
yes, please.
Sure.
We really have to. Like, I think there's some films where you can talk forever about them without doing much in the way of spoilers. This one, I noticed all five of us did it. Like, I don't think we gave a single detail or mentioned a character name one. Nope. It's just like, I thought it was good because it was different. And yeah, and those are all good statements, but yeah, we really need to spoil this motherfucker.
Indeed. All right.
Yeah, but you said it right there, Will. You said it right there. Every character is doing something so different to what we're used to seeing from a Star Wars film. Almost everything is a spoiler.
Yeah. Definitely a good way of putting that. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and move on into spoilers. I know a few folks in the chat are still hanging on, but they haven't seen it yet. I know that because they're messaging me on Facebook and WhatsApp right now. Like, I haven't seen it yet. I got a drop. I'm sorry. We are officially going to open spoilers up for Star Wars The Last Jedi. This is the part where I talk more slowly and awkwardly ramble to give you time to reach for the pause button.
And because this is Star Wars, I'm going to do this for the first time and add a little bit extra in there, because the last thing I want ever at all ever is for someone to get mad because we spoiled their Star Wars movie.
Indeed. And Bobby Miller says, bye, Bobby. He hasn't seen it yet, but Bobby, come on back when you do and let us know your thoughts. But yes, go ahead and hit that pause button. If you're listening on digital tape delay through iTunes, if you want to go ahead and listen to plugs and then come back later, you can use the time index in the show notes. If you're listening live, feel free to mute us for the next 25-30 minutes and then coming back for plugs if you want to. As Dave Massey says in the chat, go in blind, people. don't listen to the spoiler section if you haven't seen the movie yet. We don't want to steal that from you. So, Dave, definitely a great suggestion. But you've had 1 minute and 21 seconds. I just timed it of awkward rambling to hit the fucking pause button. So your time is up. Here we go. Guys, where do we want to start with spoilers?
I want to talk a little bit because a couple of us mentioned that we had some problems with the movie. And I don't want to start by, we're going to get into some cool stuff that this movie did. Don't get me wrong. But the first time I saw it, now we talked about comedy. Brad, you brought it up. And I know comedy's a weird thing for people. Like, it either hits their funny bone or it lands flat. And in the first act of this movie, there were 3 instances of things that like threw me like for a loop and actually kind of ticked me off a little bit tonally, and had nothing to do with plot really whatsoever. I'm more of a character guy, and like the tone, there were 3 things. The tossing of the lightsaber, number 1, messed me up. And Luke's tossing of the lightsaber. Okay. The Poe and Huck's conversation at a critical point in what was an awesome opening scene. And there was another one. I think it had to do with Poe. Poe's introduction in the movie came in on a somewhat clumsy comical note, I thought. But yeah, the tossing of the lightsaber hit me wrong so many ways, because the first movie before, or the movie before this, The Force Awakens, set up this moment, right? It was the big thing. We waited 2 years to see what was going on. And the movie, now I get it. I get what the movie's doing here. It's kind of poking us with a stick and saying, I'm going to do something different. So fuck you. Like what you want me to do, fuck you. I'm going to go do something else. But to have the character like throw it over his shoulder and like, I don't know, just in a very
everything you thought that was going to happen, I'm going to toss it away.
And I'm totally cool with that. But I think the way it was done was very tonally weird for the character, for the movie, and for the moment, and just kind of left me reeling. The Poe Dameron thing with Hux, the back and forth. Now, Star Wars movies from day one have had snarky comedy, right? We've had Han Solo's, like, when he's in the control room, like, everything's normal here, sir, nothing wrong. And he pushes a button, and it's great, right? But he doesn't do it for 30 seconds. You know what I mean? It's not a back and forth for 30 seconds, and it's, I don't know. It felt like they were punching the joke too much. And
Can I jump in on that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, obviously, one, he's stalling so the engine can prime up. You know, you watch the little display thing. He's needs that time.
Yep.
But 2, it's consistent with the character that we were introduced to in The Force Awakens. In the very beginning of that movie, who talks first? You talk first, I talk first. It's consistent with who Poe Dameron is. So that honestly, it didn't bother me at all. It was a little surprising at first, but I got where that was coming from. And
Mike, you raise a really good point. I mean, yes, you know, Poe did have that exchange with Kylo Ren, but that exchange, we just watched Force Awakens like 3 days ago. That exchange literally goes on for like 8 seconds. In this case, like, this goes on for like 1.5 minutes. Like, it's a much more extended scene. So yeah, I get that he's trying to, you know, stall and give time and everything, but it was almost like Seth MacFarlane-esque for me in a way, like where it just takes a joke and carries it 8 beats too long. I think the first 1 or 2 instances of it were funny, but 1.5 minutes in, it's kind of like, come on, like, does it really need to be that extended?
That's fair.
Yeah, I give you guys that. You know, Jim, to your point about the lightsaber, I got to throw this out there, and I'll tell you why it didn't bother me. Because that handing of the lightsaber has been a meme, a joke. It's been its own entity. So for him to just toss it aside immediately, my crowd was stunned into laughter
because it felt like a fan video. It felt like somebody made a fan video, and I don't want to see that. Where
I get it from you, though, is it's not in our character's necessarily nature. But if we're looking at our character in this fashion, and here's where I'll come at you. If you watch any, let's say, traditional kung fu movie where the master is teaching the student. He tends to play with that student, or
Yoda does it all the time.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I kind of had that moment where I felt the same way there. Personally, I did.
It just came all of a sudden, and like if he had just looked at it and just shook his head and dropped the thing, like that would have been funny. But like throwing it flippantly over his shoulder, it just seemed very, very weird. Like a step, like a half a beat too far for me.
For me, it was the perfect description of this movie and why this movie is. When I'm going to ask a question for all of you guys a little bit later on, but like this movie ranks incredibly high for me in my overall Star Wars listing. And the biggest reason for that is this film is all about taking what's been one family throughout history, through the prequels, through the original trilogy, through The Force Awakens, through all these things, this one Skywalker dynasty that's been basically fucking things up for everyone else. And it's discarding them. It's taking that story and it's moving them. It's saying that this entitlement, this privilege of who my family is and why that's important, that's not what's important. What's important is all these other people. And so this scene right here, it starts with this moment where we take this thing that we have deified, this thing that we have looked at for 2 years and have placed all of this weight and importance on, this legacy, which is this film is about legacy. This moment is about legacy. And what it does is it says the legacy is not what's important. What's important is the moment. What's important is the scene that we're about right now. And that's why him discarding that. Plus, the other thing too, and this goes back to the expectation part of things. I think that one of the reasons I think a lot of people are so down on this film is I think that it's easy with something like Star Wars to have already written the script in your head for how you want it to appear. And so everyone had their scene of what's going to happen. Like at that point, they were waiting for him to go, "You gave me my lightsaber, daughter. You gave me," like they were expecting that moment. And so I think that if they had played it a little more traditionally, I think that it would have played into certain people's expectations and been completely far away from others. In this case, is right here, it was the perfect way of just cleaning the table of that, getting rid of the J.J. Abrams black box thing.
So I totally respect that, and I'm sorry I'm over talking. I want to jump in because like 8 people want to talk, and I want to get something in. I think you can do that without thumbing your nose at the fans and almost laughing at them, because that's how it felt to me. Like, I think Luke could have just looked at the lightsaber and walked away. He could have taken the lightsaber, dropped it in the dirt, and walked away. And you still could have gotten a similar effect. The comedic just tossing it over his shoulder and walking away was out of character on top of, I think, what Rian Johnson was trying to do. And that's the problem I had with it. Like, maybe a lot has happened in the last 30 years. I don't know. Maybe Luke's a jokester now. But like Luke has always taken the Jedi stuff and the legacy and everything super, super seriously. He didn't have any lines in the last movie. So the very first fucking thing he does is completely out of character for me. And it was just, I don't know, it was really hard. It took me out of it right from the very beginning and made it hard for me, I think, to access this movie. Yeah. Because... Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, I agree with what you say, and I know the direction the film wants to do and the message it wants to send. I get it. It was just the way they chose to do it in that scene just didn't resonate with me. He did it fine in a line that he said a little later on to Rey, where he said, "You expect me to just go in and have a lightsaber battle with the whole First Order? You're crazy." Like, that said it right there. To me, that said it right there. Like,
and I'm not
going to go have a lightsaber battle with them. And that's what he ends up doing at the end, by the way.
He also says, this isn't going to go the way you think, which I think is another really great setup, you know what I mean, for what the movie's trying to do. And I ended up really appreciating what the movie's trying to do. I think just making it a comedic moment versus a serious one, for me personally. And we went with 14 people, and everybody that we went with, like, was not a fan of that moment. So I know it's not just me that it didn't resonate with.
Our theater lost their shit at that moment.
Yeah, people laughed.
Like it was just like, and maybe I just had a good group around me, for that particular moment. But what I think works so well about that scene, and this kind of transitions into Luke as a character himself, is we haven't seen him for so many years. But one of the things that's established through the rest of this film is this is a guy who has turned his back on everything. He has taken this legacy that's been given to him, this dynasty, this you are the chosen one, and here's all of this weight and this importance. And because of what he considers to be his own misgivings, some of his own issues, he's thumbed his nose to it. He has gone, separated himself from all of it, and said, you know what? All of that stuff that's supposed to be important, not important anymore.
You could also look at it like, he's looking at this thing. This thing caused me so much pain. I never want to see this fucking thing again.
Wow. He just threw it in the grass behind him. He didn't like toss it in the ocean.
He should have been like that old lady at the end of Titanic. Spoilers for Titanic. With the heart of the ocean, he's just like, whoop, and throws it over the cliff and watches it go into the sea.
Anyway,
if that's the case,
we got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the first scene of the movie. Let's move to scene 2.
On that one.
Welcome to our 8-part review of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. But let's continue. Let's continue the Luke thread. We might as well, the Luke and Rey thing. So one of the giant questions, and Will, you kind of touched on this a little bit, was like, is Luke gonna like confirm that Rey is his daughter or niece, right? Is she like a lost child of Han and Leia or something? Is she the sister of Kylo Ren? Ren and Rey, like, are they a thing? We essentially find out through Kylo Ren that her parents are nobodies. They were just drinkers who sold her for drinking money. But Kylo Ren, maybe not a reliable narrator in this case, right? He's trying to manipulate her into doing what he wants. So my question for you guys, speaking of legacy, is Rey actually a nobody that is just super incredibly more force sensitive? Or do you think that Ren was manipulating her?
Well, another character is my favorite character in this movie. That moment right there was my absolute favorite scene in this movie. That one line that Kylo says to Rey, because again, I think that so long this franchise has been about the Skywalkers and love them or hate them because they're good, they're bad, they're all sorts of things. It's one family and their bullshit like affecting the galaxy. And in this one moment, we basically turned the power from this one oligarchy, this one group that's wielded power, and we've turned it over to someone who is not from Legacy, who is not from this one name. We have turned the power over to this girl who comes from humble upbringing. And that right there is the basis for all of the great directions we go from here. My favorite character in this movie was Rose, and I loved her so much and where she came from and what she represents. The fact that this is this new batch of heroes that we've got, including Rey, confirmed in this moment, are all people that just quote unquote come from the dirt. That's resistance.
That's if that's true.
That's if that's
that's
true.
assuming.
If it's not, that would be such a. If they backpedal that in the next movie, it's because it's a backpedal. I don't think
it's a backpedal.
No. I absolutely believe that she came from nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't think he was.
This is awesome.
Listen, I don't believe that he was manipulating her to believe this. I think in her heart of hearts, she knew. If you go back to The Force Awakens, when Maz, says what you're looking for is in front of you, not behind you. She knew then that she had nothing to, no parental, whatever to go back to. And I think that Rian Johnson also confirmed it at the end of the movie when you see the stable boy use the Force and grab the broom. He's showing throughout the movie that what's going to push us forward is not.
Luke snuck off the island. That's his kid. I'm telling you right now.
But Mike, you do raise a good point.
You're right, Mike.
You do raise a good point. But here's the thing: we know, and this is canon in the movies, there are other Force-sensitive people out there who are not Skywalkers or Kenobis, right? Luke had a whole new generation of students, 12 or how many of it was. And yes, the books are all legacy now; they're not canon, but that's similar in the books. So, like, other people who aren't part of this dynasty just naturally are Force-sensitive. I guess they have a high midichlorian count, whatever. Thank God midichlorians didn't come up in this movie. But it's not saying that like you have to be a Solo or a Skywalker or a Kenobi to be anyone or be able to use the Force. But the movie also focuses on the fact that she is so incredibly powerful compared to everyone else. Luke even says, I've only encountered that kind of raw power in one person before, that being Kylo Ren. It didn't scare me enough then. It scares me enough now with Rey. So something about Rey, even saying she didn't come from anyone or anything, something about her makes her so much more powerful than any of Luke's other students. So where does that come from?
That comes
if it's not true.
from a Kenobi lineage. I'm sorry, that's my fan theory, and that's what I want. And I don't call it backpedaling. What I call it is legacy. Legacy that carries on, that starts a whole brand new. She doesn't have to go on and make Kenobis forever. But if you're a fan of the Clone Wars, CGI cartoon film movies series like I was,
Satine.
That is an outside possibility that this could be probably not the daughter if we're going timeline, but maybe a granddaughter. There's got to be something special about her to make it more. This movie, we dragged her down. She saw it. She cried. She burst out laughing. She's lost everything. It's about loss. Okay. But she's coming to terms with all this stuff. And I just can't fathom that they would just leave it that simple. I mean, I'd be okay with it, but you have an opportunity here to complete legacy, and I think that would be a possibility.
Doesn't that make it all the more powerful, though, if this hero isn't a hero because she was just born with the right genes, but because she, in and of herself, had this connection to the Force? And I think that, Mike, you kind of hit the nail on the head, at least for Rian Johnson's as the script and as this film was coming together. I don't know what JJ is going to come and undo later on, but it wasn't as much Kylo saying, like, getting her mind and doing this, although he was having the conversation. She had that moment of realization herself. Like, she was the one who says, I was just sold by junk traders, or whatever the exact line is. So I think that if it was just him saying it and her going, no, it's not true, or like something like that, I think we would have seen some more of like him using like subversive Force magic on her. But she comes to that truth as well.
And I think her seeing her.
She says it, but you don't know what's going on force-wise between those two. So you don't know, like he asks her, he says, you know it, tell me you already know, tell me your parents. And she says they were nobodies, but he's kind of coaxing that out of her. So I don't know what's going on in this. And by the way,
he's manipulating her to confirm a fear that she has, not necessarily a truth. Having you ever had anybody like talk to you that makes you question your
mansplained it to her?
I feel like that would be so cheap. Like
her seeing herself in the cave shows her she's a nobody. She had nobody else. And what am I?
She didn't go in the cave and see Ewan McGregor wasn't looking at her, or Mark Hamill wasn't looking at her.
But Luke also saw himself in the cave.
He saw himself.
So apparently,
in Darth Vader's.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, apparently the dark side really loves to show you yourself reflected in the dark side, as opposed to giving you necessary answers. So. Again, I mean, maybe this is the case. Maybe this really is what's going on with Rey. She comes from nothing. I still don't understand how she's so much more powerful than any of Luke's other students.
But why
if that's not the case?
Why was Anakin so much?
Mace Windu was
because he was made by the Force, apparently, right? He had no father.
Yoda was not a Skywalker. Look how fucking powerful he was,
guys.
But they still didn't have as many midichlorians.
This is awesome. That the five of us can sit here and have this awesome discussion and have like different views of the same exact shit that we watch. I think really, seriously, I think this is awesome. And this is what being a Star Wars fan is all about. I think it's great. For the record, and Brad will back me up on this, my thought going in, my everybody has their predisposed ideas.
Yes.
I didn't want her to be the daughter of the lineage. I said, the movie will be better if she's not. And even though the movie told me she's not, I still have that niggling doubt in my mind that something fucked up is going on. And it wouldn't be out of imagination to think that the movie would do that. That's all I'm going to say. We don't know which way it's going to go. I like to think like the the very last scene in the movie kind of points out that like any kid from the stables can have this power. I think that was an amazing ending scene for the movie. I loved it. This movie said a lot of things that I really, really liked. It's commentary on a lot of things. There's some commentary buried in this movie, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about it a little bit more. But yeah,
it's interesting that you bring up that last scene, and I know we're already past our wrap up.
I don't care.
Time, there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, we have guests on the show. We want to respect time. If you guys got to go, we totally understand.
No, I want to talk Canto Bight.
All right. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. We went with a big group of people, and only 3 of us out of 14 noticed the kid like instinctively calling the broom to his hand with the Force. Everybody else didn't even notice it. So we're all like, "Oh my God, this new kid, like he's another generation of Jedi." And everyone's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? He was just sweeping the steps." So very subtle moment. I'm glad that I caught it. Definitely going back and seeing the movie again, you kind of know to look out for it. But even looking online, like a lot of people didn't realize that it happened. And I don't know if this kid is going to be the main hero in Rian Johnson's like new trilogy of movies that take place after this trilogy. Maybe we'll see. It'll be all about the one Rebel ring. But one thing this movie does is it sets up these subtle things that if you aren't fucking paying attention,
right,
if a year from now you're watching this movie for the first time on Blu-ray and you're also fucking texting on your phone while you're watching it, you might miss this thing at the end. Also, people missed that the books were in that drawer at the very end, the books from the Jedi tree. I saw the books, but the first time I saw the movie, I missed seeing Rey slamming that drawer shut as she climbs into the escape pod of the Falcon just after she and Luke has that big fight and she runs off. So seeing it again, I'm like, oh, that must have been her putting the books in. But we don't see her putting the books in the drawer. We just see the drawer slamming closed. So my question to you guys is, are these moments too subtle for these big things happening?
For me personally, and this is going to be one of the biggest things where opinions are going to vary. Our opinions varied so much, and this same set of things is happening all over Reddit. But I'm the type of guy who I appreciate a movie that doesn't spoon speed me. Like, I want a film that
speed you?
Spoon feed me. Yeah. I appreciate a movie that doesn't make it ridiculously for me, because I think there are so many movies where it's kind of like, you guys have watched those movies where someone will say, "Oh boy, I hope he doesn't go look in that drawer," and then it cuts over to the drawer, and then 2 more times it shows us cutting over to the drawer. So at the big reveal, when the guy does something with the drawer, we knew it was coming. This movie does reward you for paying attention, and maybe it does punish you a little bit for zoning out or for looking at your phone. I don't mind that. I appreciate that Star Wars is able to have beats that are subtle and that require you to connect a couple of dots. So I appreciated the heck out of that. I appreciated the fact that the boy didn't like look up at the sky and then do like a backflip, or like just do something like overt and obnoxious. Like that little moment, the line that's happening as that's happening is basically saying, this moment is basically the spark. This is a spark of hope. This is a spark. It's a small moment. It's not like a roaring inferno. It's just this little moment. And so this boy has this little spark of force. I love the synergy there.
Speaking of roaring fire, if we had seen her actually put the books in or see more of what was in the drawer as she shut it, it would have taken away some of the gravity of seeing the tree burn a scene or two later.
Yeah.
So, they
could have, it totally makes sense. You could have just had her closing the drawer after the tree burns, though. Like, they could be on the Falcon flying away at that point after that moment.
But it's one of those things that it rewards you later for, I guess for knowing it. When you see it again, she's got the books.
Speaking of the big fire, man, I got to tell you, I crawled out of my skin in such a good way when we saw the Yoda ears from behind and realized Yoda was fucking there.
That was a scene in the movie that when it happened, of course, now I know it wasn't in any of the trailers, so none of you guys probably knew about this. I hope you didn't.
Nope.
I hope you didn't. But like everybody in the movie theater, both times I saw it, gasped when that happened. Like, oh my God. No, like that was pretty awesome. And it was great to see. It was great to see that Yoda back, that voice back, that, you know, he wasn't like doing flips with a lightsaber. Like it was great. And he was back in like top Yoda form with
Yoga form.
He was given Luke the what for, right? Like just like he always did from the beginning. I thought that scene was great. That was perfect.
And it was so great too, because Felipe, you just mentioned this as well, Jim, to also piggyback off what you're saying and piggybacking off of both of you. Going back going back to using the Muppet version of Yoda rather than a CGI version of Yoda just took me so much back to Empire and Return of the Jedi. And I felt like he was really there. I didn't feel like it was Luke just talking to air and then he was inserted. And it was just such a powerful moment. And, you know, something that you said earlier, Will, so now I'm piggybacking on three of you, is this whole thing of throwing away the past, right? Like Luke says, this isn't going to go how you think. Like, so obviously the books have survived in some way, I guess, but Luke was going to make a choice, I guess, to destroy his his legacy, end the Jedi, whatever. Do you think Yoda has now like subverted what Luke wanted to do by like letting Rey get the books out? Does this mess anything up with her having
Yoda
books?
Told us that the books aren't everything. You know what I mean? The books are not what's going to keep this thing going. He basically spelled that out. And if anybody would know, it would be him. So I kind of he's a very what's the word I'm looking for? A trustworthy narrator, right? I mean, if he tells us that those books, if he tells Luke that those books, you're putting too much emphasis on those books, then I kind of got to believe it.
Yeah, I agree there, Jim. I saw that as one of those moments where, you know, all I could think of was there is no spoon. And that's the moment I took from that, as well as the comedy that was there with a tear in my eye. So yeah,
there was a cool like double meaning thing to what happens there, because at that moment we know, air quotes, know that the books are in the tree. What we don't know is that Rey has already taken them, and Luke doesn't know that either. And that's part of why I'm glad that they didn't show it, because we got to be in Luke's.
But I think Yoda did.
Yoda did know. And so when he says that line of, I forget the exact verbiage for it.
She already has what she needs.
She already has, she already has what's, and he's both literally meaning she already has the book, so burn it down if you want, dumbass, I don't care. Yeah. And also meaning like she already has this, like, that same kind of spark, that same energy. Think about Yoda's most famous pupil, which is Luke. Did he need special books to become an amazing Jedi? No, because as we find out in this movie, he hadn't even read the damn things.
No. He did read the books. Yoda says to him, he says, "Read them, have you?" And he said, yeah, and he's like, "Real page turners they are." So that's another gap, though. Like
he skim read them. He skimmed them.
It's been 30 years. He's a Jedi master at this point. We know he has force abilities we never saw Yoda or Ben teach him, right? He can project himself, apparently, across the galaxy and have a physical presence. He can have a lightsaber battle, apparently, with Kylo Ren or, whatever. And so, that knowledge and power has to come from somewhere, right? Obviously, those books might be a resource. So who knows? I mean, Luke may teach Rey things as a Force ghost in the next movie, but otherwise, how is Rey going to learn some of these powers and abilities? Maybe she goes on a quest of her own to find Jedi knowledge. I mean, we really don't know, and maybe it's not super important, but the books, I mean, they must play some kind of role. I know we're getting really late. There's a couple things I just wanted to call out. One, when Yondu shows up and he's like, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all," or rather Princess Leia, apparently, I don't know, she somehow learned to do force stasis. Was that a weird moment for you guys with the plot itself and the bad CGI, or did it work for you guys?
you talking blown out the bridge window and then back?
Yeah, when she's flying back in.
So when I said I had questions, here's what it lends to me. So for a moment, let's put the CGI and what she just pulled off aside. My first thought was, okay, she's gone. This is how we're going to move on without Carrie Fisher. But when she came back, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. So there are 3 times in which I thought she could be gone. One of them was, instead of Laura Dern scuttling the ship, I thought she might scuttle the ship. That's 2. Yeah. The 3rd time, in order to, and I'm thinking ahead, I shouldn't be, but I'm thinking ahead to 9. I'm thinking, okay, they're all escaping in shuttles. They're going to blow hers away. Well, no, because Poe, C-3PO, and R2-D2 are also on the shuttle. You're not blowing that thing up. She's making it. He made his movie. He's going to keep it the way he wants, and somebody's going to have to come up with something. So that was my major question. Now what?
Yeah, it's a weird spot to be in, right? Because Carrie Fisher completed filming on this movie. So do you either set up these moments earlier in the film and write her out and not use that footage, which might piss fans off because they want to see what she filmed,
right?
In service of making the movie make sense, or do you show the footage and keep her around and then have to clean it up in the next movie and then it not make as much sense? I don't know how you straddle that line.
It's hard. And I think that that's one of the unfortunate things is that everyone sitting in that theater knew that Carrie Fisher had died, or probably most people, And so every time she's on screen, I'm sure everyone was more so than like Mark Hamill or anyone else was going like, is this the scene? Is this the scene? Is this the scene? And so that unfortunate like metatextual element is like something that you can't avoid. You can't unring the bell. Carrie Fisher is dead. Unfortunately, you can't change that fact going into it. And I think that I like the instinct here of saying, you know what, this was the original vision of the film as we worked on it with Carrie. Like when Carrie passed, this was probably what she was expecting to see, that her character would survive through this movie. So why kill her off just to do this? I think there are ways that you can. I mean, it sucks for the next one, but I think that we can very easily have something like Steve says in chat, like in the Scroll of the Galaxies in the morning at the passing of Princess Leia, or like someone like maybe there's a statue of her at a Rebel base and they say like, just have a few moments and move on. I'm just saying like they don't have to make it like she doesn't have to die on screen.
Right.
The next one, it's going to be a problem for the next one. Yeah. I think it was a problem for this one. I mean, I think that, like I said, and Felipe said, there were several moments where everybody's like, this must be the moment that we lose Carrie Fisher. And I'm waiting for that emotional moment and it never happens. And that's cool that they keep her around. But I think it really took away a really strong emotional beat for this movie. I think the emotional beat could have been played much stronger than just the meeting between her and Luke, which I know some people probably got emotional at. It didn't do a lot for me. They were talking about hairstyles and stuff. I don't know, man. It landed a little flat. And I think if she had gone out, like if she had switched with Holdo, right?
Right.
And she was the one who threw that. You imagine how they could have played that? I mean, and then the scenes after, I don't know. I think it would have been.
Do you think though that they could really kill off Luke and Leia in the same movie?
Why not? Hey, wait! We just talked about how the director wants to do all these great things and put the past behind you and move
to that
forward.
point. Like if you're going to
kill
this
the
is the right movie to do it for both. But again, like it goes back to the fact that if you don't already have the footage of her dying in those things, and you do have her as an important part of later things, you're going to have to do some reshoots, which again they cost money. That's the thing. And also I think it is sort of like, to me personally, and mileage varies, I think it is a little more disrespectful to kind of the memory of Carrie Fisher to have said, have worked with her on this story arc and then to truncate what you've worked on with her because this real world.
But I think it's also disrespectful to kill her off screen and just have it be in the crawl. JP Wendell in chat says it really well here. He says it seems like the only thing they can do now is kill her off in between films, which is so obnoxious it's almost offensive. We've taken these potentially powerful moments in this movie where she could have had a real emotional send-off, and now we're going to relegate it to like the number of characters in a fucking tweet. Like,
who
that
knows,
to me
Brad?
seems
It
disrespectful.
doesn't necessarily have to be like a just the crawls. I mean, you can still have the characters responding and reacting to it. You can still play that for a maybe not like the whole like her dying on screen, but you don't have the footage of her dying on screen, so you're gonna have to CGI it.
But come on, what if Luke fucking died off screen and people are just reacting to it in the next movie? You know what I mean? Like, what if we don't see that? What if Luke like seems like he's still on the island or whatever, and then the next movie the crawl says the galaxy is in mourning, Luke Skywalker has died?
I mean, it sucks, but it would be a lot better if Carrie Fisher had not died, but she did. And so you have one of two unfortunate solutions, and neither of them is great. But I think that this one is I think that this is the best call. Like, instead of kind of forcing her death on screen because of her real life death, continue with the story that you worked on with her, and then do something as part of the next story that is you don't have to CGI her death into it. You can have something happen to where it is small and it is subdued, but it is still powerful without her actually physically dying on screen.
I see what you're saying, Will, but I gotta say, technically, we still have Luke, because if they want to force ghost him in somewhere, they can. My thought was, and let me tell you, it was one of my favorite shots in the whole movie. That ship going through Snoke's ship was, and it was quiet.
Music
and
drops out, and it's just,
nothing. And my whole theater is literally in shock. Had that been Leia, think about the consequences and the reality and the heaviness that would have brought. So that when Luke did his thing, I think
film it that way. They
They
didn't film it that way, though. And
I agree.
There are ways they could have,
but they wouldn't have to. I mean, Laura Dern's still alive. Bring her back, film a scene of her on the shuttle, and then like green screen the other characters behind her. You know what I mean? Like maybe one line of dialogue, like she stunned me and I just woke up on the shuttle. Then we can infer that it was really Leia, you know what I mean, at the helm. And that was an amazing moment. That was incredible. But here's what I'm going to say about that. If we don't have droid controlled fighters, light speed jumping into First Order Imperial ships next movie, I think that's a problem, because now we know that they can be basically Lance hyperspace bombs.
I think Dave in chat comes up with the absolute best solution here. And he says, I hope they just write around her. She's just not part of the next story, but exists out there somewhere. One of the things that happened in this film was the baton was passed. Basically, this movie said, okay, we're passing it away from the Skywalkers, except for the one who is our antagonist now. And we are now passing the power to the people, to the spark of rebellion. So if the next story just follows those people, and, you still have references to like, Leia and the Resistance have set up base on this. Like, I think there's a tendency, and we all just fell into it. It's this thing that somebody's story has to end with the finality of death.
Right.
But there's a lot of characters in this franchise who can continue on and do other things, and we just don't have to physically see them on screen because
and then if they revisit these characters 10 years later, then just naturally she could have passed away.
Right. So here's the thing. In 2 years from now, when we get episode 9, maybe, just maybe, we'll be saying, "Oh my God, can you believe how masterfully they handled Leia in this movie?" I hope that's the case. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, we're sort of judging it having not. Yeah, wait, we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there.
So Gummy Brick in the chat says Leia's character has always been super boring. She's basically already dead.
Oh my God. Oh, Gummy Brick.
Man.
Well, everybody has their boring characters.
This is true. This is true.
Can we talk about? I want to talk more about that third act. It basically starts with the Snoke, Rey.
That was incredible.
Kylo Ren. To me, that was the highlight of the movie, even though we had more later. That face-off, I thought, was amazing between the two of them. And Will, you mentioned it before. That was when, I think that was just before he, or just after he asked her about her parentage, and they got into that thing with Snoke and the way they handled, killing Snoke. I think it was Kylo, right, who who manipulated the lightsaber and took him out. And then you're thinking, oh my God, this is it. They're going to combine forces and be, you know, have. I'm getting echo now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm hearing it too. Oh, Mike, did you change headsets or something?
Now it's not hearing us.
Yeah, it's changing.
Can you hear me?
Mike, can you hear us?
We can hear you, Mike. Can you hear us?
Yeah, my AirPods died.
Oh.
All right.
Sorry.
We'll keep going.
That's okay. So, Jim, back it up to what you were talking about, and we'll just edit it out.
I was just saying that was a pretty amazing scene. Although it did bring up one of my kind of like nitpicks with the plot. Like once they had this epic battle, they take out Snoke. Then you think Kylo is gonna like see the light and he's gonna come to the other side, but nope. He sees it as an opportunity to seize control. He tries to get her to come aboard. They fight over the lightsaber. It breaks apart. And there's an explosion and they both go out, right? And so why is it that she would have left Kylo alive to chase her down? That's my question. Like, why did she just take off and not take Kylo out if they were like at that point where he's already gone back to the dark side and he's gonna fuck her up?
Maybe she still thinks that there's some kind of redeeming quality there that she can get to later.
Maybe.
Why wouldn't she just pull him onto the shuttle with him then? If she can lift a bunch of fucking rocks, she can lift his body and take it onto the shuttle. Like maybe in the next movie, he wakes up and they're on Jedi Island.
Well, because plot, Brad. We had to have
plot, and that's not an unfair reason to say. And I'd also say that in this particular situation, the inciting incident that leads to her kind of getting the hell out of Dodge is, oh my gosh, this ship's about to blow up because of like all these fires and all of these things that are going off on it, right? So I don't think that it's unfair to say just like, okay, yeah, she just got the hell out of there because the situation was pretty dire. That scene itself was pretty spectacular for me for a couple of reasons. One, we get to see that wonderful moment right before that I said where they sort of like subverted the expectations of the parentage. Two, we take this villain that everyone has built up, and that's what is so great about this. Like they've taken like, oh, who's Snoke? I bet it's secretly this. I bet it's secretly that. And instead, he is the inciting incident for Kylo Ren to become the predominant villain. And we get this moment where afterwards, both of these characters have shucked legacy. Rey is no longer part of the Skywalker lineage. She is now her own thing, built up from dirt. Kylo Ren is no longer beholden to all the things that have come before. He wants to dismantle the system, not because he wants it dismantled like the Resistance does, but he wants to dismantle it so he can be at the top of the totem pole now. So both of these characters have found a reason to basically burn everything to the ground, but for very different reasons. And they both come to those realizations in that moment, which is set against an amazing fight sequence with all of those guardsmen. That is, I think, when I come back and think about this movie, and I think about like one segment of the movie that I think works the best, I think it's that whole scene. Like everything has been building to this moment, and everything that comes after is built from that.
So here's a question: why didn't they choke out the guards?
I didn't understand that either. Kylo Ren.
Why do we have to have an epic?
He throws people around with the Force. Like, why isn't he lifting people up and throwing them over the edge? You know what I mean? Why isn't he choking people? Why isn't he smashing them together? Why isn't he pulling their weapons out of his hands? It's one of my big problems with this movie. I mentioned some plot holes. That's one of them. Yes, we got this amazing fight sequence. Awesome, but it doesn't make sense. Yes, we got this amazing sequence of, the First Order ships like chasing after the rebellion. Oh, they're too slow to catch them at sublight. Why don't they light speed jump in front of them? Plot, okay. Like, you can make these cool moments, but I think you also need to make them make sense. Maybe if Kylo was injured and he wasn't able to use the Force as well, it would make more sense. I don't know. But it just seems like it breaks its own rules sometimes, and that's a problem.
Brad, but when you are using a ranged spell attack in melee range, you're gonna face opportunity attacks, and Kylo Ren did not want that at all.
I want to
Oh,
drop.
come on. I mean, I like the reference, Will, but there's several points where he's standing like 5 feet, like 5 feet back, and they're like facing him. They're all Power Ranger posing with their weapons. Like, come on.
You're not going to like it. It's a one-word answer because lightsabers. Period. I mean, I know you don't like it. That's why we wanted to see it. I wanted to see it. I thought it was great. I wanted to know what the Praetorian were going to do, how they were going to use the weapons they had.
I had no interest in those guys at all.
You are right. I agree with Brad a lot on this one, especially this particular plot. But as a fan, yeah, I wanted to see them work. And let me tell you, that lightsaber that got up. Think about what legacy that was, and it's when it's split in half.
Yeah.
But she still has the lightsabers. Maybe she's going to put it back together. We don't know.
Or rebuild it herself.
Who knows?
Yeah, rebuild it herself.
I think she'll use the crystal.
This
I
film
had no-
isn't just about dismantling. It's about kind of rebuilding on the ashes of what's been dismantled. So if she does rebuild it, her own lightsaber off of what's been shattered, I think that's fitting with what this film set up.
I had no interest in the red guys at all. Once Snoke was gone, like they were like, at one point, they're like, every time somebody moved before the battle, they're like posing off to the side, like different poses. I'm like, they're like the solid gold dancers over there.
I'll be honest. I loved that scene too. But I did wonder a little bit, why aren't they using the Force at all to at least yank a weapon out of their, well, just a yank a weapon out of their hand or pull them closer. And there were some Force things that they could have done and still been lightsaber heavy, without having to choke them out or whatever. But a Force tug, a Force push. If there would have been some Force usage going on in there.
Yeah,
you would think.
I mean, Ryan, it's been said that Rian Johnson watched some movies before he did this one, and one of them was, he's heavily knowledgeable in samurai movies, and I think that influence was a big part in that scene. The guys were dressed like samurais, and the battle scene was very much staged like we saw Blade of the Immortal this year, right? I mean, it was something very similar to that. And so it's cool. It was cool. It's just one of those little, to me, it's a nitpick. Like, I still enjoyed it. I love the scene. I love that whole part of it. We probably want to move along to like the third act, the big gun scene, and the holdout on red velvet cake planet, and and that whole. I thought there was some of the cinematography in that last act was like astounding. Some of the best stuff I've seen, like that line of what do you call them? They weren't AT-ATs, right? They were something else. The from the First Order, and the big ship like above them, it just like hovering there. And then when Kylo Ren is down and he's got his lightsaber and he poses right in front of him, like for his photo op moment, it looked kind of hokey when you think about it, but it was, in the moment, it was like fucking awesome. I mean, Kylo Ren is my guy. I'm ride or die. I'm ride or die with that dude. I'm telling you, that character is he's one of the best, most interesting villains in any big franchise movie that I've seen in years.
Agreed. He really comes into his own in this one because it's not just the unfocused petty rage that he had from The Force Awakens, which was still really cool to watch. I still like that. But this sense of entitlement and the fact that he's gone through this life-altering moment where he altered the life of his father, and through the course of which is spoilers for Force Awakens are okay, right? So after all of that, he's gone through this moment, and he actually has. I don't think we've had this happen nearly as often. Whenever we get the protagonist who is already on the dark side and then starts to waffle, it's because they're waffling back over and making a heel face turn, right? And here, like, we actually get a guy who is waffling, but then becomes more resolute in his devotion to the dark side. I think that's cool. I mean, this is a villain who more or less has gone through the ringer and has decided, yeah, this is what I want to do.
It'll be interesting to see if Luke can appear to Kylo at all as a Force ghost, because he did have that line, "See you around, kid." Like he said, if you strike me down in your anger, like I'll haunt you. And so now I'm wondering,
I
Yeah,
think
but
he
it's
absolutely
Brad.
will.
Good job.
Kylo's like going to the bathroom and like Luke's like, boo. And he's like, damn it, I shouldn't have killed you.
But it's interesting because this movie does a lot of foreshadowing like that. The other one that I noticed is, when Yoda appears, right? He tells Luke, he's like hitting him with his stick. He's like, "Still looking to the horizon, are you?" And Luke dies looking out at the horizon. You know what I mean? So
parallel to the 2 moons of his introduction. I think that's an arc, right? Like we get to see a character who goes out in a way that kind of matches
The way he came in.
Introduced all those years ago, and that's powerful. I mentioned Rose as one of my favorite characters. I loved her quirkiness. I loved her funkiness. I loved how not for all people, but for me, I think she represents the best of this movie on the whole. She is a character who, like us, was looked up to all of these heroes. She's a character who was not born into everything. She was literally born in the slums, and she was not. She didn't have these special magic powers or anything along those lines. She became a hero looking up to all of these heroes, and then through doing selfless heroic acts, became as heroic as the best of them. That is a hell of an arc for a movie that had so many other arcs going on. I have one big question for the group of you, and mainly because I know that we're going to run out of time before long, and if I don't ask it now, I need to. My question is gun to your head, or blaster to your head, lightsaber to your temple, whatever. If you had to rank this one in all of the movies you've seen, what number does this one rank?
7.
7 for you, Brad?
Brad says 7.
Yep.
Wow. That's
Wow.
low.
Jim?
It's probably second or third.
Wow.
Yeah, that's up there. Felipe?
3.
3. Mike?
4.
Yeah. And this is my hot take. This is number 2 for me.
How is it a hot take if you've been talking about it on Facebook?
It's not hot take doesn't mean that you've never heard it before, but when someone says that something is the new movie is better, really think about what it supplanted. Like Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope are pretty much everyone's 1 and 2. There's some exceptions, but almost everyone has that 1 and 2, and then ranks everything else beyond there. So for someone to say the 8th movie, 9th if you count Rogue One in the franchise, supplants one of those, I'd say that's a hot take. That's my hot take. I like this one a little better just as a story, both for what it was and what it represents going forward, than A New Hope, which is now my new number 3.
All right. So people wanted to talk about the casino planet, right?
And then we got to wrap up. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So all I wanted to say about that was that's my Rathtar scene in this movie. Like if I were sitting at home and I wanted to get through the movie quickly because I had somewhere to go, I would probably fast forward through that.
Well, it's completely pointless, ultimately, right?
Except for the part where you have the very last scene in the movie that kind of springs out of that section.
Oh, right. The little kid. You've got to have a reason for him to be around. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
True, but I think I agree there. That would be my one sticking point. I mean, because clearly that whole.
Also, I'm not a fan of the prequel series, and I don't even remember a lot of the plot that happened in that. But I like the fact that this movie set up this group of people, or this planet, or whatever, this society, that you have this. We've been so buried in the rebellion and the First Order, right? We never see the big picture, and this is like a little bit of that big picture. You have this whole group of people that are profiteering from this battle that keeps happening, and they're supplying ammunition to both, and weapons to both sides. And the ambiguity of that, I think, is a pretty cool statement for these movies. Now, it may be a little bit of a reach for these movies that haven't really touched on that stuff before. But it did it with that scene, and it did it with the character of the Codebreaker, who is also very ambiguous in terms of his allegiance, right? As we saw, he was in it for himself only and was willing to sell everybody out.
But is he a redeemable Lando since he got hundreds of people killed?
He's not redeemable at all. He's just.
Is he going to show up in the third movie, like to help him out at a key moment?
Maybe. I don't know. He might. Maybe they're setting up another Lando. That's
I would
a possibility.
just prefer they bring in Lando.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. If I didn't know that Billy D. Williams wasn't going to be in the movie, when Maz is like, I know a master codebreaker, I know just who it's going to be, my first thought would have been fucking Lando, especially when they show up on a casino planet. I'd have been looking for Billy D. Williams, like with a hoe in each arm, like pimping it out at a casino.
Drinking some Colt 45. Yeah,
Ooh.
you know, the whole sequence, even starting with Maz, because if this takes place so quickly after The Force Awakens, when did Poe meet Maz? And so how did he know to reach out to her? But that whole scene kind of bugged me too. But between that and then the Canto Bite, and you know, this is another one of those situations where I read a book before the movie. So last time it was Rogue One, I read Catalyst, which took place before the events of Rogue One. That book was awesome, and it enhanced Rogue One. I read the Canto Bite novel. It's basically 4 novelettes, if you will, of stories that take place at Canto Bite, and it made that place seem so cool. I was looking forward to seeing what happened, and it actually then made what happened in the movie. Like it didn't live up. The movie didn't live up to what the book promised that place to be like. So I was even more disappointed.
Yeah, I mean that and a lot of that B plot stuff outside of Rey and Luke and Kylo. Some of that stuff I think was you know the whole not Poe but Rose and
Finn.
And Finn stuff. I thought until the very end, I thought was kind of superfluous. I think a lot of that could have been skinny down or maybe even cut out. I mean, they just needed somebody over there to like take out the freaking detectors or whatever it was, right? It was a quest storyline, basically.
The whole plan is just crazy. And I got called a curmudgeon on Facebook today because of this thought. Maybe I am. But Hadrian, who we've had on the show before, he was with us for our Power Rangers review, had basically made a post where he was like, you know, the lesson of this movie, you know, is in regards to millennials and da-da-da-da. And so basically what I said in response to that was, you know, the millennials in this movie, we might as well call it the Millennial Falcon.
The Millennial Falcons, yeah.
But you know, they come up with this crazy plan and they think that they're smarter than everybody else who has all this experience, and they look before they leap and they jump in and they make things 1,000 times worse. If they didn't go on that stupid side quest to Canto Bite, then the Benicio del Toro character never would have overheard the plan about the ships escaping with cloaks, you know, onto the Rebel base planet. Like all of those people would have lived. And so I think there's a lesson in this movie about hubris and looking before you leap, and I think that's interesting. My question is, could you have had the same lesson without this, you know, fast-forwardy Canto Bite scene, Mike? What do you think?
I think that there could have been a way to do it. You know, even if it was them just figuring out how to sneak over to the ship in some other way. You know, them leaving to go to another planet to do something and then come back all in the time frame that the ships are. That just did not make sense to me.
Yeah, it felt a little stretchy to me, like they almost like they're throwing too much in the pot at that point.
Like just like saying, we need to have one more location in this movie. Here's how we'll do it.
I appreciated the scene because I appreciated, again, I think that this showed a different side of this particular universe. These were all war profiteers. These are all people that made their money off of basically off of the blood of the galaxy. And just seeing seeing the wealth and social disparity that happened there, I think that was really, really powerful for me. And using that as a way to showcase this part of the world, to showcase these characters, Finn and Rose, who are both in different ways kind of self-made characters, is great for me. I didn't like the Benicio del Toro stuff as much. That's the one big knock I have against it. I think that he felt like he was a little he gave a stunning performance, but for a different movie. But all of that is set as part of Poe's story, which is we're talking about dismantling of things. This sort of dismantles the Han Solo mentality from the first one. So we have this character, kind of this rugged, macho, masculine, like, I'm going to rush in with all of my bravado, kick ass, take names, and I'm going to be the hero of the galaxy. And that's what Han Solo did. And he did it so well. And Poe tries to do the exact same thing. And in doing so, we get this point both from Leia and from Holdo, the Laura Dern character, basically about, being the hero is about making, like, being a leader is about making, like, difficult and measured decisions, not just like rushing in, blowing things up, and trying to look like a hero. I liked that we got a chance to see this other part of the galaxy, while also Poe's character hopefully learning some things about what it takes to be a leader, and not just be like not just be Han Solo Part 2.
I like that message that came out of Poe's story. What I didn't like is that Finn was expectations. I expected Finn to play, to have more of an arc, for his arc to continue through this movie. And it seems like it kind of went dormant. And he ended up being kind of more of a side character again, unfortunately. And I think, whether you like Rose or not, the stuff between him and Rose seemed like, again, just a side story that really didn't. Yeah, we brought in a new character, but for his character, I don't think it was much of an advancement.
Well, it was almost like it was a plot point to get him to be able to confront Phasma, which
lasted like less than a minute.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, we've been doing this for like 2.5 hours at this point, almost. So we really do need to wrap this mother up. So one final, like, 10 to 12 second bit from each of you, if you want. One last thought about this movie. What do you need to get out that you haven't got out yet?
Great score. I love the use of the score in this movie. All the themes that they brought in for the characters were there again. Just another win on the score, and which elevated the movie for me. And crystal critters, yes.
Oh, the Pokemon, definitely.
Porgs, no.
Porgs, yes. Porgs, yes.
Hashtag Porg, yes.
I wondered if that was going to come up. Fucking porgs. All right, Felipe, how about you?
I'm simply going to say that, you know what? Are we sure we like this film?
Yeah, I know.
You know what? There is a lot to like about this movie, and I think we even though we have picadillos, there are concerns that I think that as fans we just wanted to see maybe a different side. Jim, yes, the music is amazing. Seeing old friends on the screen was really good, and I loved it. I just want everyone to go see it. Check it out.
All right, awesome, Will.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to love in this movie. I'm looking forward to seeing this again and again. I'm definitely Porg, yes. I'm also Crystal Fox, yes. I'm that beautiful velvet cake scenery and that wonderful fight at the end, yes. I'm all of the moments of this film, yes. I'm also see it in 2D, yes, because I saw it in 2D and it was stunning and beautiful and gorgeous and vibrant. And everyone I've not seen it in 3D, but everyone I've talked to who has seen it in 3D said it looked muddy on their projection. So I would suggest, having only seen the one and only having that feedback from others, I would suggest the 2D projection.
All right, Mike.
All right, for better or worse, whatever people are thinking about this movie, it is a worthy entry into the Star Wars saga and the Star Wars mythos. And we're so passionate about things because of how much we love this stuff. So, you know, you're going to find good, you're going to find bad, but at the end of the day, just enjoy it. It's Star Wars. We get new Star Wars movies
almost every year now, right?
Yeah,
it is every year.
We're 6 months away from Han Solo. You know, just love the time that we're in and enjoy the movies for what they are.
Yeah.
All right. And for me, I can't believe this moment didn't come up. I think it's my second favorite moment of the film. Is coming full circle with Luke Skywalker when he's on the Falcon and he counters R2 and he says, R2, I wish I could make you understand why I can't come back with you. He's like, nothing you can do will make me come back. And R2 fucking plays the Leia hologram. And now he's in the Ben Kenobi spot. And, you know, that, but also with Carrie Fisher being gone and that being one of the first things we see of her in the original trilogy, I fucking cried in that moment. It destroyed me, but I also cried like happy tears seeing Luke, like that being the catalyst that brings him back in. So this movie, while not perfect, while not even necessarily super wonderful to everybody, is full of great moments, even there if there are some maybe bad ones that go with it. So Mike, to your point, I agree, even though it has some issues, absolutely, it is a good Star Wars movie. So guys, I want to thank all of you so much for being here with us tonight. We're gonna wrap, so we're not going to do an extended plug section, but since we do have our guest with us, Felipe, if our listeners want to find your podcast and hear more of you and your cohorts, where can they do that?
Oh, please, on Twitter, go over to @real_podcast. Give us a follow. You can look for me. I'm at voodoo_57 on the Twitter sphere. Give us a listen. Let us know what you think. And thanks again for having me on the show. I love you guys. You guys know that. And I had a blast.
We love you too,
Thanks,
Felipe. It was so great having you with us. Absolutely. Mike, where can people find you?
At Twitter, just at Mike Lovins. I hope to one of these days kind of revamp my my podcast, which was at Lovin Stereo, LOVINSTEREO. But one of these days I'll get that up. But if you want to hear what I do musically, bavachoco.com, BAVACHOCO. It's my band. I play bass and do backup vocals, and we're rocking the world.
I have listened to some of the music from Baba Choco. You guys are fucking amazing. Excuse my language.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Listeners, definitely check it out. Mike, maybe we'll get to see you guys do your thing one day in person. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Definitely. Jim, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at JJP Out West. That's JJP Out West on Twitter and under my name, Jim Pugliafico, on Facebook.
All right. Excellent. Well,
hey, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Whatever Cove. You can find me on Facebook. Look for William Lindis. Just send me a message first before you add me so that I know that you are a real human being and not a Russian bot. Look for me on Letterboxd. That's where I review and log star ratings for every movie I've watched, which is way too many. And you can also find me at the local Alamo Draft House or other Austin-based movie theaters. So, hey, if you're in Austin and you want a movie buddy, hit me up.
all right, awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at iBradPro or Facebook. Just search for Brad Harris. Definitely send me a message first. That would be great. Don't do what someone did to me today, which totally pissed me off. Just started randomly Facebook calling me 5 times in a row. And then I declined them all. I'm like, dude, why are you calling me? I don't even know you. And he's like, oh, I listened to the podcast. I just wanted to talk to you. I felt bad for a second. And then I was like, let's talk. Let's message before you just call me, please. So please learn from that lesson, because apparently I'm a curmudgeon and, you know, I'm mean. In any event, Felipe and Mike, it was so wonderful having you guys back on the show with us. Thank you so much for being here. Jim will absolutely love doing this with you guys every week. For fuck's sake, the last 5 years. Oh my God. Happy anniversary, you guys. Well done.
Happy anniversary. Here's to the next 5, right?
That's right. Let's make it a decade of the Movie Bears podcast. I am totally okay with that. One, I love it, Felipe. We should have had a bottle
The
of
Daddy
champagne.
Bear podcast will eventually be.
There you go. And one final thank you to all of our listeners who are hanging out with us tonight. Most of the people that jumped on at the beginning stayed with us throughout the whole 3 almost hours of podcast. We love you guys so much. Thanks for being here with us live. For those of you who are finding the show through iTunes or Stitcher, we love you guys just as much. If you want to talk about this movie, let us know your thoughts. We've got some posts on our Facebook page. Feel free to head over there. Go ahead, let us know what you thought. Don't forget, subscribe to the show on YouTube as well. A lot of our listeners in their comments called out our handsome mugs. A, you guys are very sweet. Thank you. But B, you're missing like 90% of the good stuff, I think, by just listening through audio. So be sure to check it out. Guys, we out. Thanks for everything. May the force be with you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.